Good morning, students. Today we will discuss the nitrogen cycle. How nitrogen enters from atmosphere into biosphere, again from biosphere or from living organisms, how it move back to atmosphere. This entire process is known as nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen occupies 78% of total gaseous mixture of air in our atmosphere. And nitrogen is present in molecular form or elemental form in the atmosphere. This molecular form of nitrogen is highly inert. Inert means not actively participating in chemical reactions. Nitrogen is an essential nutrient for all living organisms because it is one of the structural constituent of many essential biomolecules like proteins, nucleic acids, vitamins, and certain biologically important compounds like alkaloids and urea and ammonia, etc. Since it is one of the important structural constituent of many biomolecules, and without these biomolecules the survival of the living organisms is not possible. So nitrogen is an essential nutrient for all living organisms. Only few forms of bacteria could utilize the atmospheric nitrogen directly because actually they also cannot use the molecular form of nitrogen directly, but they can take up that molecular nitrogen directly because they are having the ability to convert it into nitrates and nitrites. Nitrates and nitrites are the utilizable form of nitrogen. As atmospheric available nitrogen is molecular form of inert nitrogen, most of the life forms cannot utilize it directly because it is highly inert. So most of the life forms or living organisms cannot utilize it directly because these life forms or living organisms do not have the ability to convert it into nitrates and nitrites. Nitrites and nitrates, which are the utilizable form of nitrogen. Nitrites and nitrates are the forms of nitrogen which can be taken up and be utilized to make the needed biomolecules by the living organisms. Atmospheric nitrogen is converted into utilizable forms of nitrogen, that is nitrates and nitrites, by bacteria and by lightning. The conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and nitrates by bacteria is known as biological nitrogen fixation, and conversion of the molecular nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites by lightning is known as physical nitrogen fixation. Conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites by bacteria is known as biological nitrogen fixation, and conversion of atmospheric nitrogen or molecular nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites by lightning is known as physical nitrogen fixation. Conversion of unutilizable form of atmospheric nitrogen into utilizable form of nitrogen is known as nitrogen fixation. Or simply to speak, conversion of molecular or atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites is known as nitrogen fixation. What is biological nitrogen fixation? Conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites by bacteria. This biological nitrogen fixation may be carried out by free living bacteria or may be carried out by the bacteria that are associated with the roots of the higher plants. Where do these bacteria associate with the roots? These roots are going to have special dots-like structures called nodules. The root nodules of some special plants. These plants are known as legume plants. Why? Because they belong to a plant family known as Leguminaceae. Only the plants that belong to the family Leguminaceae have root nodules. Inside these root nodules, a special type of bacteria called Rhizobium, cyanobacteria like bacteria, they reside inside those root nodules and then they fix the molecular nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites. Okay. And there are some free living bacteria. They do not associate with any higher plants or any other living structure. They are freely living within the soil. They also convert the molecular nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites. Example for root associated bacterium that fix the nitrogen is Rhizobium. Okay, remember that one. So, biological nitrogen fixation is carried out either by free living bacteria or root nodule associated bacteria that live in the root nodules of legume plants. Coming to physical nitrogen fixation. High temperatures and pressures are created during lightning in the air. In the air, high temperature and high pressure is created during the time of lightning. What is lightning? Heavy amount of electricity that is falling from the sky onto the earth during the time of storms. Okay, storms. During the storms, big sounds having thunders and heavy voltage having lightning will be coming from the sky onto the earth. Due to this lightning, high temperatures and pressures are created in the air. These high temperatures and pressures in the air convert elemental form of nitrogen into oxides of nitrogen. Oxides of nitrogen. These oxides of nitrogen dissolve in water to give nitric and nitrous acids. These nitric and nitrous acids fall on land along with rain, and after falling on the land, nitric and nitrous acids are utilized by various living organisms. First, initially what is happening? Oxides of nitrogen are formed. Oxides of nitrogen, they dissolve in water and they form what? Nitric and nitrous acids. Along with rain, this nitric and nitrous acids fall on the land. After falling, this nitric acid and nitrous acid, they are utilized by various living organisms, especially by plants. What is the fate of nitrogen once after it is converted into nitrates and nitrites? Plants generally convert the nitrates and nitrites into amino acids. Amino acids are used to make up proteins because amino acids are the precursor molecules for proteins. Next, nitrogen containing complex compounds are prepared in other biochemical pathways using the nitrates and nitrites. First, initially what happened? Using nitrates and nitrites, amino acids are formed. And these amino acids are utilized to prepare proteins. Next, in some other biochemical pathways, nitrogen containing complex compounds are prepared using nitrates and nitrites. What are those nitrogen containing complex compounds? Alkaloids and urea. So, nitrates and nitrates are utilized for what? To prepare proteins and to prepare nitrogen containing complex compounds. These proteins and nitrogen containing complex compounds are consumed by animals in the form of various plant products. So, animals will grow, plants will grow. After attaining maturity, then they attain aging. After that, they die. After the death of the plants and animals, the dead bodies of plants and animals are added to the soil. From these dead bodies, various nitrogen containing compounds are converted back into nitrates and nitrites by some other soil bacteria. Right? Okay. There are some other form of bacteria which are also known as denitrifying bacteria. These bacteria convert the nitrates and nitrites into elemental form of nitrogen or molecular form of nitrogen. Okay, right. What is happening after the nitrates and nitrites are taken up by the plants? Initially, plants are converting nitrates and nitrites into amino acids. These amino acids are utilized to prepare proteins. Apart from making proteins, in some other biochemical pathways, the nitrates and nitrates are utilized. Nitrates and nitrites are utilized to make nitrogen containing complex compounds. The proteins and nitrogen containing complex compounds are made in the plants. These proteins and nitrogen containing complex compounds are consumed by the animals in the form of various plant products. Both plants and animals grow and they mature, then they get aged and they die. After the death of the plants and animals, the dead bodies of the plants and animals are generally added to soil. From these dead bodies, in plant dead bodies and in animal dead bodies, there are many nitrogen containing compounds are present. in the soil some special bacteria are there which convert these nitrogen containing compounds from the dead plant and animal bodies into nitrates and nitrites. Okay. And in the soil there are some another form of bacteria which are known as denitrifying bacteria. These bacteria convert the nitrates and nitrites into elemental form of nitrogen. This conversion of nitrates and nitrites into elemental form of nitrogen is known as denitrification. And these bacteria are known as denitrifying bacteria. Right? Let us try to understand the nitrogen cycle in the cycle form itself. See, this is atmospheric nitrogen. By nitrogen fixation, which is carried out biologically, physically, now industrially, in the synthetic manner also. Biological and physical are natural nitrogen fixation process. Industrial is artificial nitrogen fixation process. Whatever it may be, by nitrogen fixation, utilizable forms of nitrogen are made. Right? What are they? Nitrates and nitrites. They are utilized by the plants, and inside from the plants, animals also got them. So in the plants and animals, these nitrates and nitrites are converted into complex compounds of nitrogen in the living organisms like ammonia, proteins, okay, alkaloids, etc. After the death of these living organisms by some bacteria, these complex compounds of nitrogen are converted back into nitrites and nitrates. So where are they present? In the soil only, right? So again in the soil some plants will be growing. So some amount of these nitrates and nitrates are taken up by the plants again, right? This will be continuing like this. And remaining nitrates and nitrites, they are converted back into atmospheric nitrogen. So nitrates and nitrates are converted back into atmospheric nitrogen. This is what called denitrification. Right? With this, the nitrogen cycle will be completed. Okay. This is about the nitrogen cycle. Other biogeochemical cycles, one by one, we will discuss in the subsequent classes. Thank you.